It is 4 o'clock. The ABAC clock the bells are ringing, which lets us know what time it is every day, on the hour every day. So we're going to go ahead and get started because I value your time and I want to make sure that we are done in time for you guys to go and do whatever other things that you need to do this afternoon. My name is Brittany Schwing. I am the South Region Area Horticulture Teacher. I get the privilege of working with our area officers in the South Region every year, and don't tell the rest of the guys that I work with, but I feel like I got the good end of the deal because I get to hang out with 16 elected area officers that I think are the best of the best in the South Region. It's one of my favorite parts of this job. I know that as we have had area officers in the past, that lots of questions pop up. And you guys need an opportunity prior to being chosen as being an area officer to ask those questions. So that's what today's meeting is going to be about. This is an interest meeting. You coming to this meeting does not mean that you are definitely running for area office. It just means that you're interested and you might have some questions that you want to get answered. Our agenda today is going to involve several things, but mostly just looking at what it takes to be elected to be an area officer. We're going to talk about that application process, the written exam, your speeches, but then we're also going to talk about, like, once you are elected, what your responsibilities include, specifically looking at the calendar. And then if you guys have any questions after we've gone through all of these items, I want you to have the freedom to answer those. I do have a few current area officers in on this call. So if you have questions that I feel like maybe we need a student's perspective or a current area officer perspective, then I'll throw them in there and let them answer for me. All right. Any questions before we begin? Okay, good deal. I've got this presentation for you guys. I also am going to close this at some point and look at the application. So we may flip back and forth to this presentation and the area officer application. I am recording this too, and I'll send it out on the listserv to your advisors after this is over. So if there's something that you need to refer back to, you'll be able to later. Okay, so let's talk about eligibility. To be an area officer, you have to have been an active FFA member for at least 1 year. That means that this cannot be your very first year in FFA because you need 1 full year. So technically, this year needed to be your second year in FFA. To be a senior officer, you must currently be in 9th grade or higher. To be a junior officer, you must currently be in 7th grade or through the 9th grade. So you'll see that one of those grades is listed twice. 9th graders can choose, current 9th graders can choose to be an area officer, at a junior area officer or a senior area officer. And then you must be in good academic standing. And that's one of those things on this application that you and your advisors are going to have to attest to. It's also going to be one of those things that when you are serving as an area officer, you're going to miss some school. And if you're not in good academic standing prior to becoming an area officer, we don't know that you're going to be able to balance this responsibility of being an area officer with your academics. So knowing that ahead of time is super important. All right, so let's talk about the election process. We have an application. A lot of times we get applications in that look like they were done at the last minute, and it looks like the area officer candidates did not put in a lot of effort into those applications. I say a lot of times, sometimes. I want you guys to know that those applications are the very first item that we see that represents you. You need to put some effort into that application. Those applications are not given a score, but they are ranked. So the highest ranking all the way down to the lowest ranking. We take all of the ranks from the application, the written exam, and then votes to give you your ranking as an area officer. The top 6 ranked area officer candidates will be elected to seniors, and the top 2 junior area officer candidates will be elected as our junior representatives. So on the written exam, the candidates are ranked based on the exam scores. I will say last year that one of our junior candidates had the highest exam score in the entire South region. I thought that was pretty cool. And then speeches and voting, the candidates are ranked by the highest number of votes. Questions about the election process? All right. Okay, so let's talk about this application. I'm going to go through some of these items and then I'm going to pull up this application so that we can look at it together, because I'm going to be super honest with y'all. This application has not been updated in a hot minute. And there are some items on this application that are a little bit confusing. And some items that whenever they do updates, hopefully this year, that will be removed. But I want you guys to understand prior to filling out this application what we're asking for. So on the application, you're asked to fill out your t-shirt size and your button-down polo size. We need to know if you're on any athletic teams. And the reason we ask this is because we want to know where your priorities are. We're not saying that you can't play sports. But what I am saying is that if you play softball in the fall, it's going to conflict with 2 of our major events that area officers are involved in: Region Rally and FFA Day at the Fair. Those 2 events are required. So if you play softball, you're telling me by filling out this area officer application that you are willing to completely miss practice and games to be at Region Rally and FFA Day at the Fair if those things conflict. Same thing with sports like tennis and baseball. Those are in the spring. And so sometimes those conflict with CDEs, and area officers have requirements as far as the number of CDEs that they help with. We also have area banquets and things that we have to prepare for, state convention. If those activities that are required for you conflict with your duties or your responsibilities as part of being on an athletic team, we're saying that by you filling out this application, you're going to choose FFA area officer over your athletic team. If that's not something that you're willing to do, then you need to really consider whether or not area office is something that you need to pursue. Okay. SAE work experience, it specifically says SAE versus a non-ag related job. So what this is saying is SAE is your supervised agricultural experience project. This is the project that you're required to do in your agriculture classes and keep records on. You may also have a job that is not related to your SAE. We want both of those pieces of information, okay? Leadership activities is another one that you have to list. Where it says status, you can put things like placing. We're going to look at that in just a little bit so I can show you what we're talking about there. Major FFA awards and recognition. This is anything that doesn't fit in any of the other sections. So you may have filled up the other sections, but you may have some major awards that are related to FFA, but they didn't really match leadership activities. So maybe you were a state winner on the livestock judging team. That doesn't really fit under leadership activities or SAE work experience, and you would list that as a major FFA award. One of the requirements on your application is that you have signatures. And on the application, it specifically says principal signature. You do not have to have your principal sign that application. It can be any school administrator. So if your CTAE director knows who you are and they're willing to sign your application, that's fine. An assistant principal, anyone who is an administrator at your school who's familiar with you, familiar with the program, can sign that. So I would talk to your FFA advisor about the best options on who to get to sign this application. And then finally, the candidate statement, this must be in your own handwriting. So you will notice when we open this application in a little while that these boxes, every other page has the option for you to type. But the candidate statement, it specifically asks you to do it in your own handwriting. I've seen some of your handwriting. Some of y'all write like serial killers. I'm really, really concerned about your future. I think most of you are going to become doctors and lawyers because you have such horrible handwriting. I would suggest that you take your time. The important thing is that it is legible. I need to be able to read what it is that you're saying. So it may be that you need to do this really slowly, put in the extra effort to make sure that it's legible. Okay, I want to pause this and look at the application together. So the very first page just talks about all of the other things that I have gone over with you about eligibility, the process, and who we're electing. This is the first page where you're required to enter information. And so you'll notice that you can type into these boxes, okay? Age and gender. This is where it says t-shirt size. This t-shirt size is what I was talking about earlier, where I want you to give me your t-shirt size and give me your polo or button down size. So it may say something like large or extra large because they fit differently. I want like a general idea, if that makes sense. Something else that I want you to pay attention to is this says, please submit electronic photo of the candidate either on a CD. That tells you how old this application is. My laptop doesn't even have a CD-ROM option anymore. Do not send me a CD that has your picture on it. We just need for you to, when you send your application, also send us an electronic picture of you. Preferably of you wearing your official dress. It needs to be an FFA picture. I use these pictures to create a slideshow that gives information to the chapters so that their voting delegates can become familiar with who you are prior to our banquet. Okay. Also notice this little section up here at the top where it says junior office or senior office. Specifically, if you're a ninth grader, I need you to circle which option. And you can also, if you have like Adobe, you can edit this like by highlighting it, or if you need to scan this in, you can even circle it prior to scanning it in, okay? So athletic teams, will your coach understand if you have to miss? Public speaking experiences. Okay, so supervised agricultural experience, this is where you're going to tell me about your SAE project. Scope means the numbers and the size. So for example, if my SAE project was in vegetable production, let's say I grow a vegetable garden every year. Scope means the size. So if I'm specifically only growing one crop, I might put broccoli, half an acre. That would be the size. I'm making this up. If your SAE project is livestock, let's say that you show goats. You would say under the SAE description, you would say one breeding doe or maybe 3 breeding does. That would be the size. Off farm, you may not have any off farm supervised agricultural experience projects. You may not have anything that is, I'm sorry, this is a non-agriculture related project. You may not have anything there, and that is okay. Major FFA leadership activities. So this is offices that have been held, chapter area, none of you will have any state because you're running for area offices. Length of service, most of the time is going to be 1 year, 9 months. Other leadership activities that are related to FFA that are not related to being FFA officer go in this section. And this is the part where I was telling you about the status. So leadership activities could be things like competing in prepared public speaking. And so if you competed on the chapter area and the area level, and you placed first in area, that's what that would look like. Y'all can see my screen, correct? You can just shake your head up. Okay, thank you. And so we would say prepared. Whoa, how about I learned to spell? Prepared. Okay. Questions about that so far? Okay. And then non-FFA leadership activities. So this is if you are an officer in FBLA, or you're an officer in Beta Club, any that activities that are leadership roles that are not FFA related. Major FFA awards and recognition. Again, this is anything that is not covered in the sections before. I will tell you, the applications that are full are the applications that score the highest. Applications that don't have items that are repeated are the applications that score the highest as well. Okay, then you're going to sign it, you're going to date it, your guardian is going to sign it, and then your advisor is going to type in a statement. So don't let them forget. They've got a lot of things going on right now. So when are area officer applications due? Does anybody know?
Isn't it April the 22nd, Ms. Schwing?
Sure, I have no idea. I know it's in April. It's the Monday before state convention. I'll look at the calendar. So the Monday before state convention is not a great time to ask your advisor to write this statement for you. When is a good time to ask them?
Right when you get your application.
Yeah.
Go ahead and remind them, and then do another reminder.
Great. Today, when you finish this Zoom call, if they're not on this call with you, sending them a text message that says, hey, I'm going to need for you to write me a statement for my area officer application. My plan is to turn this application into you on this day, so that we can have it turned in before April 22nd. That would be a great conversation for you to have with your advisors. Okay. All right, they need to sign it. And then if you are a student who is moving on to a different school, so let's say you are an 8th grader at a middle school this year, and you are next year going to be a 9th grader at the high school, you will be an area officer representing the high school chapter. So what we don't want to happen is you run for an area officer as a middle school student, and then your advisor at the high school has no idea that they're going to have an area officer next year. So this is just an opportunity for you to go ahead and talk to that high school advisor and make sure that they're on board with you being an area officer. And I'm sure that they will. And then we have to have an administrator statement. Again, it doesn't have to be the principal. It can be anyone at your school who is in an administrator role. And then you're going to write your own statement in legible handwriting. There's a commitment form. I want you to know that these items that are right here on this application, this does not encompass everything. What I'm going to share with you today does. And the list that you get from your advisor in this email is going to encompass everything. So when you sign this area officer commitment form, you are signing to agree to the dates that I'm going to give your advisor that are not all included right here on this list. Okay. So your signature, guardian signature, your ag teacher signature, and then an administrator's signature. And then finally, the very last thing that I need is this information on this page. This is what goes into the PowerPoint presentation that I send out to chapters so that they can know more about you. Okay. Don't send me your picture with a CD. All right. Questions about the application before we move on to written exam and other things?
Does the administrator who writes the administrator statement have to be the same one that signs off on the application?
No, it can be different administrators. Good question.
Thank you.
I'll say this again at the end, but if you have any questions about the area officer application, don't hesitate to reach out. I would much rather you ask and do it correctly than do it wrong and you were just afraid to ask the question. Take the initiative to make sure that it's done right. Okay. Written exam. The exam will take place at 4:30 p.m. at the area banquet. This is a little bit different than in years past. We are going to have a meal at our banquet this year. So you do need to arrive a little bit early so that you can take the exam prior to that meal starting. It is a 50-question multiple choice test, and it's a simple Scantron. All you have to do is bubble A, B, C, D. I'm going to put a copy of that Scantron in on that email because some of you have never used a Scantron before. If you have questions about how to do that, let us know, but that sample will be in that email. I need you to know that this exam is created by our state FFA office. So Mr. Lastly, Miss Whitworth, that crew up there. I do not create this exam. And so looking at that information, a really good way to study for this exam would be to look at past FFA quiz examples, because those are the same people that write that material. So questions are pulled from the FFA manual. They're pulled from the student handbook, Robert's Rules of Order, which is basically just parliamentary procedure, and then the past 12 months of FFA New Horizons. Your advisor should be able to help you get access to all of those materials. Okay. Questions about the exam? Okay. All right, the part that freaks everyone out just a little bit, the speech. So you guys will give a 1-minute speech to the voting delegates. The delegates are going to vote for 6 seniors and 2 junior reps, and candidates are not allowed to use props of any kind. We will meet briefly before the banquet starts to walk through what that's going to look like. So you're going to get the chance to kind of do a walkthrough before you actually do it to take away some of those nerves. I do want you to know that if something happens and you go over, let's say your speech is 1:01, I'm not going to call time on you until I know that you are completely going over your 1 minute. Sometimes just that knowledge helps take off some of the fear and anxiety of having to stand up there and give a speech. Okay. Questions about this portion of the election process?
So like the banquet, would you read our form first and then that chooses who goes to the banquet to do all that other stuff, or is it just?
So we pick the top 12. That's a very good question, Lane. I'm assuming that's your name. That's what your Zoom thing says. We pick the top 12.
Nobody, whatever.
We pick the top 12 senior candidates and the top 6 junior candidates, and we do pick those from your applications. Sometimes we don't have 12 senior candidates and 6 junior candidates, or we may have like 13 or 7, and if that happens, then we're going to let everybody go because I'm not going to cut just one student out. But that is a good question. Your area officer application is what chooses that top 12 or top 6. Okay. All right. Mr. Stone is really loud. Okay. That kind of concludes this section where we're talking about the process, the election process. We're going to move on to talking about the calendar. Again, I am going to send this out, but I would encourage you to take a screenshot or picture of this page, because this is what you are going to be, what's going to be required of you in your calendar for next year. Area officers are expected to make their role as an area officer a priority. Officers are expected to attend the following activities in their upcoming year of service. Area officer training is July 26th and 27th. I am sharing this date with you now. If your mama has not booked the beach house for the summer yet, and she needs to know, or she's planning your summer vacation, you need to go ahead and let mama know that July 26th and 27th, you are required to be at area officer training, okay? Every year we have students who, I didn't realize that I had to be at area officer training, and they miss out on a really crucial part of forming that bond as a team and getting the training that they need to be successful the rest of the year. Okay. Area teachers meeting will be August 20th for Area 5 and August 22nd for Area 6. This is an additional planning meeting that we have, and it's very important that our area officers are there. South Region Rally is September 4th and 5th. You are required to be there both days for that event. We have monthly Zoom meetings to talk about what's coming up in the next month, to make sure that everybody's good on assignments for Region Rally or for FFA Day at the Fair, for CDEs and LDEs. Those meetings typically last around 30 minutes, and we have them on Zoom. I ask that all of my area officers are there for every meeting. Things happen. If you're not at a Zoom call, you're not going to get kicked off of the team, but you need to know these dates ahead of time so that you can put them in your calendars. If you have after school jobs, sports, that you can let your boss or your coach know that you're going to be out for about 30 minutes to have this meeting once a month. FFA Day at the Fair will be October 7th and 8th. The October 7th is an evening or late afternoon. So you could go to school for the morning and then come to Perry that afternoon, and then you would miss all of the 8th. That is a required event. We'll have another Zoom meeting in October. We also do our area officer retreat the weekend of Martin Luther King Jr. So that Monday, we typically do Sunday, Monday, since most of you guys are out of school. That is not required. It's just a fun opportunity for us to hang out and spend time with each other. We have that at Camp John Hope. So if you're planning to be an area officer, I want you to go ahead and put that on your calendar so you don't have any other activities planned and you can attend that weekend. 2 more Zoom calls. We'll do area banquet practice April 28th and 29th. The area banquet is an all-day affair because we have to plan and practice. So that will be May 5th and May 8th of 2025. And then area officers are required to serve at a minimum of 4 CDEs and LDEs during the school year. Questions about the calendar for area officers and expectations? Okay. All right, so responsibilities, you need to be willing to commit the entire year. Again, this goes back to that conversation about if you play sports. Sports are typically seasonal. So if you play softball, you may say, oh, I'm going to play softball in the fall, but then I'm going to be an area officer in the spring. It doesn't work that way. It's a full 9-month, 1-year commitment. Be willing to take and follow instructions. One of my favorite things about being an area officer is that you guys get the opportunity to get some one-on-one leadership training. And sometimes that training requires constructive criticism for you and for me. Even adults need constructive criticism so that we can be better at our tasks. If you've never had constructive criticism before and you become an area officer and it's the first time you've experienced that, sometimes that can be a little bit of a change. Just know ahead of time that that may happen and be prepared to work on making yourself better for the next year. You need to be able to communicate through text messages, through, we have a group text messaging. We also communicate through email, and the scary concept of a phone call where you have to talk to somebody on the phone with words. If you struggle with that, that may be something that we can work on this year, but know that your responsibilities and your expectations are that you're going to communicate. You need to be knowledgeable of ag ed, FFA, and the ag industry. You need to forego all alcohol, tobacco, and illegal substances at all times during this year of service. I have had an area officer who worked at a restaurant where that restaurant served alcohol. And her place of employment created a post advertising an event that they were having where alcohol was the center of the attention of that event, and tagged my area officer in this activity, in this event. You need to know, like my area officer was not participating. She was just tagged because she worked there. Even little things like that, I want you to have on the forefront of your mind, as those are not acceptable in your year of service as an area officer. You guys are not within the appropriate age to partake in those things, and you are representing the South region. Morals and ethics values are really high. So if you struggle with any of those prior to becoming an area officer, I want you to consider maybe not running this year until you can not have an issue with those items anymore. Specifically, boys sometimes with tobacco products. Okay. Avoid places or activities that would raise questions as to moral character or conduct. Use wholesome and appropriate language in speeches and in informal conversations. We have had issues in the past where like Snapchat groups or online dialogue has not been appropriate for an area officer. And so these are all things that when you become an area officer, you have to consider that a higher standard is being held for you. So think about that beforehand. Maintain proper dress and good grooming. Make sure you have complete official dress. Your chapter will be paying for your jacket, for your area officer jacket. You will be responsible for getting all of the other pieces of your official dress. We'll talk about what that looks like after you're elected, what appropriate official dress would look like, so that whenever you come to area officer training, you have all of the items that you need. You need to maintain and protect your health, your physical health, and your mental health. Strive to improve your ability to carry on meaningful and enjoyable conversations with individuals of all ages and walks of life. So you need to be able to talk to adults, and you need to be able to talk to peers that are not in your social group. Treat all FFA members and fellow teammates equally and with respect, not favoring one over another, and conduct yourself in a manner that commands respect without any display of superiority. That kind of speaks for itself. This is what we were talking about earlier. You need to kind of be able to do a self-evaluation of your attitude and personality, and have this constant state of self-improvement. Serve as a member of a team, always maintaining a cooperative attitude, work in harmony. And then finally, you're representing the South Region in Georgia FFA, so with a smile on your face. Okay. There was a lot of you need to do this and responsibilities and high expectations. Before I open it up for any questions, I want to end with being an area officer does require a lot of responsibilities, but the reward that comes out of it, and I hope that the area officers that are on here would agree, it is on the region level the best you can get. You get the opportunity to go a lot of places and do a lot of things, speak to a lot of people, make a lot of connections. That leadership development that you get as an area officer, the training that comes from Kylie Whitworth at the state office and Mr. Lastly, it is, there's nothing else like it. And I think that every student who has a desire to go further in FFA needs to have this experience. So don't let that list of responsibilities and expectations create this idea of, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or maybe I'm not qualified to do that. I think you are. We all have room for improvement. I just wanted you guys to know ahead of time what the goal was. So with that being said, what questions can I answer for you all about the area officer process of being elected, the experience of being an area officer? All right. Those of you that are current area officers, did I cover everything? Did I miss something? Is there something that they need to know ahead of time?
I think you hit it spot on, Miss Schwing.
Okay.
Who will be the people like voting for the area officers?
Good question. So every chapter gets to choose 2 voting delegates. So the chapters that are present at our banquet, and most of the time that's almost every single chapter in the South region. So for Area 5, it'll be all the Area 5 chapters, and Area 6, all the Area 6 chapters will have 2 voting delegates, and they're the ones that will vote. Okay, good questions. Anything else? All right. I appreciate you all taking the time to be here to make sure that you're prepared for running for area office. If I can answer any questions for you, please let me know. I want to make sure that y'all have everything that you need. I'm excited to see what the next 16 students that we've got in the South region for next year. So let me know how I can help. I'll stick around for just a little bit. I'm going to stop recording. And then if you have any other questions that you didn't want to ask while the video is going on, you can.
Miss Schwing, I have one more thing to say.
Okay.
So I know, like, with me, because I'm not the tallest person in the world, and I cannot see over the podium, I do have a stool, like a small step stool in my car that I will have with me at the banquet, just in case.
Yeah, we do have this issue every year, not just with Caroline, with other area officers that are running. I had the same issue whenever I ran for area office and state office, Caroline. So Miss Greta's shaking her head. She remembers. All right. Thank you, Caroline, for adding that. So if you're vertically challenged, you perfected too soon, then we'll have some option for you to appear taller behind the podium so that you can see over it. Okay. Anything else for the good of the group before I stop recording? Okay, we're going to stop recording.